Café and Networking Podcast promotes successful business owners and business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, known as the King of Networking, connecting people from my unique communication lab in Brazil. And today we talk with Scott Anderson. He's joining us from Omaha, Nebraska. Scott Anderson, founder and CEO of Doubledare, an executive coaching and consulting practice which dares entrepreneurs and executives to fully live their unique talent, passion, and purpose. He's a serial entrepreneur and licensed mental health therapist. So, Scott, what's the difference between leadership and followership?
Great question, Tom. The main difference is that leadership doesn't necessarily lead people, or in other words, the fact that you have a title or a business card or the leverage of a paycheck as a leader does not mean that necessarily people will follow. And today, in the era of the Great Resignation and of quiet quitting,
Quitting.
Yes, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a TikTok video that went viral, and it was a millennial sort of person on the subway talking about how they're going to go to work today, but they're not going to give it their all because they're not inspired by the company they're working for, and because they feel put upon by their boss, by presumably a toxic boss. And so this meme or this TikTok video has gone viral, and there's several million views. And the whole idea is that I'm going to show up, but I'm not going to give it everything because of this leader that I cannot follow. So in short, the difference between leadership and followership is that without followership, people won't give their all. Without a voluntary decision inspired by something special the leader does, there will be no followership. And at the end of the day, the leader will and their company will lose competitive advantage and only get a fraction, perhaps, of the employee that they are working with.
Well, in the old days, that was like walk the talk, right?
Yes.
So if the persons, your subordinates or whatever, actually saw you doing, you were the role model that they could look up to, then they would follow you. Today, virtual meetings and everything else, it's not always clear, right?
And that's the key, really, is that leaders that get followed are leaders that are essentially trustworthy at the very most fundamental level. And they're trustworthy because they have a code of ethics or values that may or may not be explicit, but that the follower or the teammate can see that the leader is making a very strenuous effort to adhere to consistently on a day-to-day basis. It really does. All of the psychology boils down to, as a follower or as a team member, can I trust the person who's leading me? And the best way to trust them is watch what they do, as you say, the walk, not the talk.
Right.
So if the walk is consistent, we're much more likely to trust them, and we're much more likely to follow them, even if we don't share the same values necessarily.
Well, and to the point of trustworthy, and I agree with you. You know, we just can't go out and buy 3 pounds of trust, right?
No,
it's not something you pick up. You really have to live that. You have to show that. That sort of has to sweat out through the pores, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the difference. And this is where most first-time leaders make mistakes, and often in a crisis situation, instead of relying on their values and trying to live according to their own, live consistently to their own values, they often revert, not because they're bad people necessarily, but because they simply don't know any better. They'll revert to behavior that, like micromanagement, for example, or an authoritarian approach, which simply does not work in the workplace today. And this is the reason why it's so important for leaders to learn some basic principles of what it takes to be followed, to succeed at leadership, and also to prevent the expensive and really costly, in more ways than money, mistakes that first-time leaders tend to make.
And taking that, if you take the first-time leader who's in a corporation, that's one thing. If you take the first-time leader, it's in his own company. And we see that today in startups. So you're really putting multiple pressures And
Exactly.
one thing I saw on your site is scaling up, burning you out. Is that a challenge today? Is trying to go too far too quick?
Absolutely. And for entrepreneurs in particular, the very nature of being an entrepreneur is kind of this fire in the belly that says, I want to go it alone and do this on my own and be an independent person, which is the fire you really need, or you won't succeed as a entrepreneur. But at some point, you do want to scale your business because if you wear too many hats for too long, the odds of burning out, particularly today, are extremely high. And then the business, the wheels on the business tend to fall off. And not just that, but relationships at home suffer, et cetera. And the genuine symptoms of burnout tend to occur. So, yeah, the problem with scaling a business for an entrepreneur is that entrepreneurs are great at doing everything themselves.
Right.
That's part of what inspired them to not have a boss and to do everything on their own. But the problem is that ultimately they can't get typically above a certain ceiling if they do everything themselves. And it's that inflection point or that ceiling that is the difference between burnout and really suffering, or scaling your business, being able to systematize it, delegate some of the work, and to scale your business to higher levels of success.
Well, I guess that's the secret. Fuel the fire, but don't let it burn you.
Yes.
Control the fire, control the fuel.
Yes, that's right. And today, and really prior to COVID, but definitely at COVID and since COVID, the incidence of burnout has increased dramatically, not just for entrepreneurs, but for their teammates. Mm-hmm. And again, they're without delegation and without systems and without empowering teammates, no entrepreneurial business can succeed, or certainly can't grow very far or very fast. So unfortunately, the symptoms of burnout, as defined by the World Health Organization, include physical exhaustion, right, emotional, psychic exhaustion, mm-hmm, that doesn't get any better, even if you have a good night's sleep or a long weekend or even a vacation, even a sabbatical. We've had clients who have taken 3-month sabbaticals thinking this will cure their burnout, discovering that when they return to work, it's had no impact at all.
It's still a pile of ashes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you can stir the ashes, but if you're burned out, but people think if they sort of change the outside, sometimes sometimes people will, unfortunately, we've had clients, entrepreneurs who have sold businesses thinking, well, this will cure my burnout, or on the home front will get divorced or change where they live, right, and thinking that if they change the outside, the inside suffering will go away. But unfortunately, burnout isn't a Band-Aid won't do it. It's an inside job to recover from burnout.
Well, also the pandemic brought to all of us a reality that has been there. It's nothing new. The world is virtual. So really in today's e-world, scaling up is learning how to deal virtually and remotely. Some of the signs of burning out or stress, you can see them because you're near someone. That doesn't always show up on a Zoom call.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And the symptoms are the World Health Organization and actually the American Psychiatric Association have designated burnout as a bona fide mental illness. Mm-hmm. So it has similarities with anxiety disorder, it has similarities with depression and with stress disorder, but it's really its own animal unto itself. Again, one of the main symptoms is this bone-tired exhaustion that doesn't go away with a good night's sleep. But other symptoms include feeling increasingly isolated and disconnected from, and this is especially deadly for entrepreneurs, disconnected from the passion they once had for their business or for their customers or for their industry or their skill. And obviously that's deadly for entrepreneurs and just as deadly if your teammates are feeling the same way. That's why this quiet quitting is sort of an invisible, like invisible termites in a business, and can be so costly. Even if people are showing up to work somehow and are they're quitting on the job. They're not quitting formally. But that's a tremendous drag on the success of any business.
As all tires are spinning and nobody's getting anywhere.
Exactly, yes. That's right.
Scott, how can our audience find you? How can they find help for being stressed out and overworked?
Well, the two ways, really. Our coaching website is Doubledare, YOU.us, as in the United States. If they'd like to watch a masterclass on the symptoms and solutions for burnout, they should go to burnoutbreakthrough.com.
Burnoutbreakthrough.com.
That's correct.
Very good, Scott. Well, thanks for being part of our program today.
My pleasure, Tom. Thank you.
And for our audience, again, it's Scott Anderson, S-C-O-T-T, the last name A-N-D-E-R-S-O-N. You'll find him on doubledareyou.us, and you'll also find him on LinkedIn. There he's Scott Anderson, M.S. Okay? Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you.
Café and Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focus.com. Thanks for listening until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.